Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. I began noticing changes weeks, if not months, before this, but at first I brushed them off as insignificant. They seemed trivial, just a few extra messages and late meetings. Of course, everyone has busy periods, right? But this wasn't just about being busy. When someone looks you in the eye and makes up a story about a work event on the weekend, it signals a deeper problem, not after 19 years of marriage. Knowing all of Grace's quirks and habits, I started picking up on her subtle signs. She would get absorbed in her phone when she thought I wasn't paying attention. The screen would go dark the moment I turned toward her. She had a repertoire of pre-made excuses to step outside during dinner, always with that bright smile and too sweet tone she had perfected, acting as though I didn't see through her game. I understood, but I stayed silent. Typically, I observe from a distance when faced with problems I plan to address later. Grace was fortunate that I was preoccupied with a work project, one that required more physical effort than mental focus. 3 days spent on calculations and adjustments gave her some freedom, or so she thought. That's when I found the final piece of evidence. One evening after dinner, we were in the living room when she stood up to pour herself a glass of wine. Her phone buzzed on the couch beside me, and the screen lit up. The message read, "I already miss you." The sender was unknown, but the meaning was clear. Instead of confronting her right away, I kept quiet. In the past, I might have reacted with anger or punched a wall to release the pent-up frustration. But I had learned to control my emotions. That's exactly what I did, laying the groundwork for something far more satisfying than a petty argument. The first step involved surveillance, executed with such skill that my former engineering professors would have been impressed. I installed several small, low-grade cameras throughout the bedroom, carefully disguising them. These budget devices were inexpensive but functional, streaming footage directly to my laptop. I needed to make sure nothing raised her suspicions. Grace remained carefree, too absorbed in her fantasy to notice the wires I had hidden behind the bed frame over the past few days. I also crafted a special device with a spring mechanism designed to be placed under the mattress. Building this device was a labor of love. I set it to activate with a delay, allowing enough time for the bed to be in use. And then, boom, the ceiling met its rival. It wasn't just about causing harm. I knew it might result in broken bones, but for me, it was more about the betrayal, the shock of it all. I wanted them to believe they had a private sanctuary, only for me to turn it into their worst nightmare. I wanted them to fear me. I needed her to understand the consequences of destroying the life we had so carefully built together, but I'm getting ahead of myself. In the following days, Grace became predictable. No significant changes occurred. She continued with her usual indifference, weaving her lies, confident I would believe the story about a colleague named Madison who constantly invited her for evening drinks. "I won't be late," she said one evening, kissing me on the cheek as I nodded, placing the key on the kitchen counter. Her perfume lingered longer than usual, expensive. Curiously, it was a scent she hadn't worn for me in quite some time. "Of course," I replied, carefully hiding my thoughts, keeping a stone-faced expression as cold as the coffee machine beside us. As soon as she left, I went back to tightening the screws on my little device. Every turn of the key felt like a final adjustment, tightening the noose on her naive little story. The next phase had begun, the ruse. I arranged a trip, claiming that the company needed my presence in California for a week to present a new prototype. I remained calm, pretending to be annoyed about the trip. At dinner, when I informed Grace, she didn't press for details, just nodded, sipping her wine. "Oh? Another work obligation?" she asked, looking away as if uninterested. Her feigned concern almost made me laugh. "Yes," I sighed, skillfully dragging out this charade. "Shouldn't take more than 4 days, maybe 5 depending on how quickly we wrap things up. I'll keep you posted." She smiled. A smile that reminded me of the old days, back when she thought she was in control. I had the sudden urge to snap the fork in my hand. By the time we reached the airport, There was a noticeable lightness in her step. She waved from the driver's seat, radiating warmth and tenderness. But as she drove off, I noticed my hidden camera by the door had started recording, capturing her irritating left turn towards Charles's house. Conveniently, I was still nearby. I parked by the curb and killed the engine, my eyes fixed on the phone lying on the passenger seat. The live feed flickered for a moment before stabilizing, revealing the home I had painstakingly built with her. From this angle, I could see our bedroom, where Grace was meticulously preparing the stage for her little act. She thought she had everything under control, using the usual excuses about work perks, late meetings, and constant stress, as if I couldn't tell that something was wrong, as if I didn't know her routine better than she did. But tonight, she believed I was out of town. That was the most humiliating part. There was a twisted satisfaction in knowing how easily she had deceived me, and how naive she was about what was to come. Suddenly, the front door swung open, and there stood Charles, the charming realtor himself. With a smug grin on his face, he acted as if he truly belonged there, as if he had a right to be in my home and my bed. A cold, calculated satisfaction washed over me. Let him enjoy these last moments of confidence. They ascended the stairs, her laughter resembling that of a schoolgirl eavesdropping in the boys' locker room. Disgusting. I enlarged the video to full screen, my finger hovering over the remote beside me. Not yet. Timing is everything. I had put too much effort into this moment to rush it. They started undressing, laughing between whispered words I didn't want to hear. It was always the same pattern. Fleeting pleasures, temporary thrills. They were completely unaware. Grace approached the bed as if it were a ritual, as if it were a routine for them. Perhaps it was. She even had the audacity to toss one of the pillows onto the floor, the one I had chosen for her last year because she liked the design. That infuriated me. They both climbed into the bed, entwined and undressed. That bed. My bed. I clenched my jaw and gripped the remote tighter. Just a few more seconds. Grace let out a soft moan. Charles whispered something in her ear, which made her laugh again. Another shallow, empty laugh. I imagined how they thought the night would unfold. They'd enjoy their fun, sleep off the guilt, and I would return in a few days, none the wiser. I almost smiled. My finger pressed down hard on the button. The bed suddenly jerked upwards, flinging both of them into the air like a toy with a spring mechanism. There was no time for a scream. Their bodies collided with the ceiling, and the sound reverberated throughout the room. A sickening, wet thud echoed as flesh hit plaster. If either of them had been able to grasp the madness of what was happening, it would have been too late. Grace was the first to hit the ceiling. Her body twisted unnaturally, her shoulder striking the ceiling at an awkward angle, fully dislocating it. A faint crack resonated in my ears through the phone. She dropped to the floor like a rag doll, landing face first. She screamed, but it came out as a choking gasp as she clutched her shoulder, her entire body trembling with pain. Charles fared little better. The force of his lift slammed the back of his head directly into the light fixture, shattering it. A sharp crack filled the room as his chest collided with the edge of the bed. He collapsed next to Grace, gasping for breath, barely able to move. I swung the car door open and stepped out into the cool night air. My walk toward the front door was slow and deliberate. There was no need to hurry anymore. Rushing had been part of the thrill. I pushed the front door open as if it were just an ordinary evening. The sounds of their cries and groans floated down from upstairs, muffled by the closed bedroom door. As I approached the staircase, I deliberately kicked off my shoes, one by one. I ascended the stairs with calm determination, the sobbing growing louder with each step. A wave of peace washed over me. All those nights spent enduring her ridiculous excuses were finally at an end. The lies were over. I turned the doorknob, finding it unlocked, not that it mattered, and swung the door open with such force that the handle slammed into the wall. Grace's eyes met mine, blood staining her teeth. She whimpered my name, fear etched on her face as she tried to crawl away. No, I had no desire to talk. Charles, that fool, groaned, barely able to move, lost in his own pain. One hand clutched his broken ribs tightly, his body trembling as he struggled to breathe, each breath shallow and ragged. I stepped into the room, towering over the wreckage of their affair, feeling a deep satisfaction. Grace tried to crawl backward with her one good arm, her broken body sliding across the floor. Her arm hung limply from the dislocated shoulder. "Please," she gasped. I pulled out my phone and opened the hidden recording. There it was, undeniable. Every moment captured, every betrayal preserved forever. I held the phone out so she could see the video, relishing the silence. Grace's eyes widened in horror as she realized what was on the screen. She understood what it meant, what I was offering. She shook her head, tears mixed with blood streaming down her cheeks. "No, no, no, please, Brian." Her voice broke into pitiful sobs. Her career, her reputation, everything she had built was on the verge of destruction, shattered in mere moments. Charles, still too dazed and injured to fully comprehend, glanced at me. Even through his pain, I saw the realization dawning on his face. His jaw dropped in silent terror as he stared at the phone. There were no words, only a faint groan of despair. I let the silence stretch out, watching as the weight of the moment crushed them both. Grace opened her mouth again, perhaps to beg or scream. I felt complete indifference as I slid the phone into my pocket, not even glancing at her. I headed straight to the closet, where in one corner lay her collection of designer handbags, neatly stacked next to her shoes. All those luxurious things she had accumulated over the years. One by one, I pulled them out, throwing them onto the floor in a chaotic pile. "Brian, please don't do this," Grace stammered, her hands trembling as she tried to lift herself from the floor, barely managing to rise a few inches. I didn't turn to face her. Instead, I took out a lighter and flicked it. A small flame flickered softly, casting a warm glow on the mess in the room. My satisfaction was cold and calculated. This was only the beginning of their suffering. "You know," I said, my voice steady and almost disturbingly calm, "I've had quite a busy day. While you were otherwise occupied, I made some important financial decisions." Grace's eyes widened in shock as the realization hit her, and a dreadful understanding appeared on her face. "That's right, dear. Our joint accounts? Emptied? The house? It's now in my name alone. Your car? Sold. Everything we built together? All mine?" I watched as Grace's face turned pale, tears streaming down her cheeks. She tried to respond but could only stifle sobs. Charles lay motionless, his eyes darting between us as he finally grasped the seriousness of the situation. "You have nothing left, Grace. No money, no house, no support. And you," I said, turning to Charles, "are in just as much trouble. I wonder how your clients would react to a video of you in bed with a married woman." Charles's face drained of color. "You can't do that!" he squeaked, clutching his side as if in pain. "Oh, I absolutely can and will," I replied with cold certainty. "Unless, of course, you both prefer to face something even worse. In that case, I suggest you disappear." "You're lucky I'm even calling an ambulance," I said, pulling out my phone, dialing 911 as I kept my gaze fixed on them. "Yes, I need an ambulance. There's been an accident." After the call ended, I looked at Grace one last time. The woman I once loved now lay crushed, pathetic on the floor. All I felt for her was contempt. "Goodbye, Grace. I hope it was worth it." I left the house, letting them deal with the consequences of their choices. As I got into the car, I heard the rising wail of sirens, but I was already looking ahead, ready to start a new life, free from betrayal. Filing for divorce was a mechanical process, simple and devoid of emotion. I approached it like any business matter, with precision, efficiency, and absolute resolve. Grace didn't even try to resist. What could she say? Her body was battered, her spirit broken. When I saw her in court, I barely recognized the woman standing before me. The once confident gleam in her eyes was gone. I didn't feel a shred of compassion. She was just an empty shell, and honestly, that was more than she deserved. It was almost absurdly easy. She didn't contest a single point. The affair, documented in detail on that dating site, sealed the outcome before the battle even began. The divorce was finalized so quickly that I signed the papers as carelessly as canceling a gym membership. As for Grace, she left with only what she had on, I drained all the accounts, leaving her with nothing. No car, no house. And speaking of the house, I sold it too. Too many memories tied to a life that turned out to be a lie. Now I had a new place downtown, my own space to start fresh. A modest apartment located above a cafe. It's the kind of place where anonymity reigns, where people respect each other's personal space and avoid interfering in each other's lives. Everything here is functional. I found solace in this cold detachment. Waking up in a place unburdened by the weight of past memories was liberating. No longer did I wander through places that were filled with traces of her scent. Finally, I felt free. And you know what? I started dating again. I met women who weren't interested in my past, women who were blissfully unaware of Grace. They didn't need to know about it. I cut all ties with anyone connected to her, friends, acquaintances, anyone who might try to pull me back into the swamp of reconciliation or forgiveness. I was done with it. That chapter of my life wasn't just closed, it was erased. A barren wasteland. For the first time I existed without her presence looming over me. And the best part? That video. A small, sharp reminder of the pain, something I could hold on to, ready to surface at my will. Not to watch it again, of course. I didn't need to see it another time. I had seen it enough. It had served its purpose. No, just the knowledge of its existence was enough. I realized that Grace knew I still had it. It's amazing how one recorded moment can define a person's entire life. She would never feel safe again, always fearing that the video might surface, perhaps at her workplace or during an important interview. A few months later, I sent her a small reminder. Nothing too elaborate, just a snapshot of me at a bar, smiling like someone in control. I had my arm around a woman named Elisa. We had met a few weeks ago, but she wasn't the focus. The message was brief and clear. 2 sentences. "You'll never escape this," I wrote. In the envelope was the photograph along with that note. I imagined Grace in her filthy motel room, opening the envelope, looking at the picture, probably trembling, wondering if today would be the day I destroyed her life with a single click. She brought this upon herself, didn't she? Now she could lie in the chaos she created, with her broken ribs and shattered spirit. And so I took the final step in my revenge, the video. I sent it out to various social groups. Why keep such an exclusive video to myself? This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel. Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. In one night, my life fell apart so completely that it felt foreign to me. I packed up our things at the hotel, left, and drove home in a daze, barely aware of anything except the road ahead. At a traffic light, I muttered to myself, "Green light, let's go," and slowly let go of the brake, almost like the car itself. As I kept driving, I couldn't shake the shock of how quickly and profoundly everything had changed with Arya. Just recently, I was her whole world. Now, I was nothing. What haunted me most was the cold tone with which she delivered that crushing blow. She showed no emotion, no regret. She simply made the decision without hesitation, surrendering to the allure of some celebrity. Without any explanation, she disappeared, saying only that she needed to use the restroom. Her friend was in on the plan too, and in an instant, she was gone. To hell with her husband, it seemed. And not only me, to hell with the kids too. She made this choice consciously, fully aware of what it meant. She knew how deeply it would hurt, yet she still left, on the night that was supposed to be ours. I can't fathom how someone who claims to love you could act this way. Perhaps if there had been signs, weeks of tension or estrangement, I might have been prepared for the betrayal. But just minutes before, she promised Dave that she'd dance every dance with me, held my hand as we laughed, meeting each other's gaze across the table. Everything seemed perfect. At one point, I considered picking up the kids early, but knew I wasn't ready to take care of them in this state. A hollow question echoed in my mind. What do I do now? Her cruel choice left me empty, deprived of all the feelings I should have had. No anger, no sadness, only numbness. Reality began to seep into my consciousness only the following morning when I finally opened my eyes. Somehow I managed to change into pajamas, hang up my suit, and collapse into bed. After a pointless shower, I trudged along an icy path and ended up at a cafe for breakfast. Marie, our usual waitress, immediately noticed I was alone. "Where's Aria?" she asked, pouring my coffee. I looked up at her. "You know Owen Anderson?" she smirked. "Who doesn't? Well, he's in bed with Aria now." Her face went pale, and she dropped the coffee pot, covering her mouth in shock. "Are you serious?" she whispered, clearly rattled by my blank stare. I nodded, brushing away the dampness gathering in my eyes. Twisting a napkin in my hands, I muttered, "Looks like I'll be needing a lot of these." "Ollie," she whispered, breaking protocol to place a comforting hand on my shoulder. "I thought you two were such a strong couple, just perfect." She brought over an entire napkin holder and sat down across from me. "My boss said I could take a break," she added softly. I just nodded. "So what will you do now?" she asked, genuinely concerned. I blew my nose, adding another tissue to the growing pile, and shook my head. "Honestly, I have no idea. I'm still trying to understand what even happened." She squeezed my hand in support, and I finally managed to say, "I'm stunned by how meticulously she planned it all." As I drank my coffee, I recounted the humiliations of that night, every painful detail. With each twist in the story, Marie's expression grew harder. "This is unbelievable," she finally said. "Did they know each other? Was all of this orchestrated?" "How would I know?" I replied, still struggling to comprehend it all. "I can't believe it," I muttered, staring into the distance. She had been so focused on me, up until the moment he asked her to dance. It was as if someone had flipped an invisible switch, and in an instant, she became a completely different person. I could never have imagined she had such a side to her. Marie nodded slightly in response, barely noticeable. "This reminds me of an old story my grandfather used to tell," I said, drifting into memories, "about a horse thief." "What story?" she asked, intrigued. "It was one of his favorites," I explained. "A horse was tied outside a store, and a man just walked up, untied it, and rode away as if he'd owned it all along." "But the real question," I continued thoughtfully, pouring myself another cup of coffee, "was whether he became a horse thief because he stole the horse, or if he stole it because he was already a thief deep down. Many people walked past, but only he couldn't resist." Lost in thought, I realized I had probably spent years married to a deceitful, cowardly woman who had always been selfish. I sighed, shaking my head in resignation. I didn't expect this. At that moment, Marie's manager seemed to signal her. She stood up, patted me gently on the shoulder, and gathered up the used napkins before heading to the counter. After some time, I noticed my breakfast was over. Empty plates and crumpled napkins were piled in front of me. At home, I began packing. Whatever happened, staying in a marriage with a woman who had so coldly betrayed me was no longer an option. In a whirlwind of movement, I grabbed boxes, packed only the essentials, and left. My parents had retired to another city, like so many others, and the thought of joining them suddenly felt right. Driving south, I wondered, am I running away? Not at all. If my parents still lived nearby, maybe I would have stayed. But now, I wanted to be near people I could trust. Their warm home, far from the toxic remains of my broken marriage, was a bonus. I called them on the way, calmly explaining what had happened, partly thanks to that quiet talk with Marie. Mom put me on speaker so Dad could listen too. They immediately offered for me to stay as long as I needed. I stopped at a gas station, logged into my accounts, and transferred nearly all our savings to a new offshore account. She'd get her share eventually, but given her coldness towards me, I saw no reason not to make her work for it. She'd have to find funds for a lawyer without immediate financial support, which might complicate her access to the best specialists. I even blocked her credit cards, claiming they'd been lost. Her new partner could likely support her. He had made that quite clear last night. I called my boss and used up my 2 weeks of accumulated leave to mark what was now simply a dead anniversary. By noon, the phone rang. It was Aria. I let it ring, making it clear I wasn't interested. Soon after, a message arrived. I'm back. Where are you? Did you take the kids? I waited for the next exit before replying. No, I left. No. She called immediately, but I ignored it, rejoining the highway and sending her to voicemail. To avoid the temptation to respond again, I turned off my phone. She deserved the silence, the same emptiness her actions had left in my soul. Later, at a gas station, I turned on my phone and saw multiple missed calls. From her mother, from Dee, and even from my boss. Seriously? My boss calling on a day off? I realized Arya was doing everything she could to break through my silence, trying to reach me through any available channel. I turned off the phone again, finally firm in my decision. When I arrived at my parents', my new refuge, I spent over an hour recounting all the recent events to them. Afterward, I began to think about the future. I asked them to let me stay for a few weeks under the radar and not to reveal my location to anyone. If it's inconvenient, I can always find a hotel, I offered. But they assured me it wasn't necessary, and we spent hours discussing options over mugs of beer, eventually deciding on a plan. Their house was only a few blocks from the beach, so I drove there, left the truck in an empty lot by the shore, took off my shoes, and let the waves brush my feet. Then Arya called. Where are you, Oliver? Her voice was tense. I'm gone. Where did I go? The same place as you. Yesterday you left, following some impulse that pulled you away from me. Today I did the same. I left and followed my own path. I once loved you. No, you're right. You never loved me. But that doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that I no longer love you. I can't endure such heartless betrayal. But Oliver, she says, what about our 17 years of marriage? I've asked myself that question so many times I've lost count. Did you think about those years last night when you kissed that stranger? Did you think about us? About everything we built together? I don't know if she thought about it. I guessed, and her sigh told me everything I needed to know. How did you find out? She asked. Was it Dee? Oh yes. Your friend Dee doesn't know how to keep secrets, does she? Dee practically stumbled over herself in her eagerness to tell me, like a fly drawn to fresh carrion. I chose my words carefully, letting her cling to the tiny bit of bewilderment she still had. But Oliver, it was just one night, she said. Exactly, Arya. In that one night you gave a stranger something you had denied me for 17 years. Now we both know where your true loyalty lies. Actions speak louder than words, don't they? Her sigh grew heavier. I had never spoken to her so sharply. For over 17 years I had been gentle, forgiving, believing my devotion was proof of love. To her, though, I was just a doormat, ready to take whatever she threw at me. But Oliver, what about our children? She pleaded. Yes, heartless cheater, what about them? Last night showed exactly how much they mean to you. If Emma had needed emergency help, if something had happened, no one would have been able to reach you. What kind of mother does that? Now we know where your true priorities lie. Oliver, please, it was just one night. I came back and I'll make things right. And how exactly will you do that? Silence. I'll do anything, she said. Please come back and we'll get through this together. As for me, I seem to be managing quite well on my own, I replied. Thanks. What? How? Where are you? I'm where I need to be, far from a self-absorbed woman who so easily abandoned her family. She sighed and then started sobbing. Are you with Holly? Holly Burmeister, the sister of my fishing buddy, a woman who had always sparked Arya's jealousy. Holly was confident, easygoing, unafraid of a little flirtation, which drove Arya mad. I paused. Wait, did you just call her a shameless woman? What does that say about you? Holly is a free woman, and you're married with 2 young children. Holly didn't abandon a husband and children for a stranger. That was you, selfish and heartless. She cried harder. No, don't say that. I came back. It was just one night. But that one night was enough for me to see who you truly are. A lying, unfaithful traitor. You knew exactly what you were doing and you did it anyway. That's the mark of a truly selfish person. I'm not the bad guy here. I truly care about you, I stated. No, you're not fooling anyone. The only person you're truly devoted to is yourself. And of course, that man you were with last night. Actions speak louder than words, Arya, I continued. You sacrificed everything for him. Was it worth it? Was that night really unforgettable? Her silence told me everything I needed to know. Come on, hurry up, I smirked. You'd better get to him before he finds another married woman to spend his Friday with. Did you see what he said in last month's interview? I pressed, watching as she began to falter. No. What did he say? He said he's tired of chasing after beautiful women, claims he finds it far more thrilling to conquer plain, married women, the ones who aren't glamorous, the ones with stretch marks and signs of aging. Beautiful women are too easy for him. He needs a challenge. He thinks moms who put up a fight make the best conquests. No, he couldn't have said that, she murmured, horrified. Oh, but he did. It was last month. Didn't you see it? Why do you think he's always spotted with women like you? All the young, beautiful ones are gone. He's left with only the trusting ones he can manipulate. If you want to hold on to him, Arya, you'd better hurry. He'll be looking for a new thrill by Friday. Her restrained tears turned into open sobbing. You're just saying all this to hurt me, she whimpered. And why would I want to hurt you? Though she knew the answer, she whispered quietly, because I love you. Why would I want to hurt you, Arya? I asked again. Because I hurt you, she admitted, barely audible through her tears. Exactly. You knew it was wrong. That's why you couldn't look me in the eye afterward. You snuck in through the back door, asked Dee to cover for you, and thought you could sweep it all under the rug. Because for Arya Carlyle, love means apologizing afterward, after publicly humiliating her husband. And she still thinks he'll forgive her. I took a deep breath. No, Arya, this isn't just selfishness. It's delusion. But Oliver, it's over. It was only one night. I'm here now, and I'll be better, she pleaded. You haven't answered the most important question. How are you going to make up for the pain you caused me last night? How? She was silent, at a loss for words. Just then, a message came through from my mom. Dinner at 9. I have to go. Someone who genuinely cares about my feelings is making me dinner. Who is she? She screamed so loudly that I had to pull the phone away. Is it Holly? I swear I'll kill her. Ah, the maturity of the modern woman. How long do you think I'm going to put up with this, Arya? A heavy silence hung between us. Forever, I replied, calmly but firmly. Remember that, Arya. I'm done. Who would go back to a woman who's proven she doesn't care? You had your perfect night, congratulations. Now you can wonder every day if that night was worth throwing away 17 years of marriage. The silence between us was palpable, and I dealt the final blow. And maybe one day you'll ask yourself if it was worth it for your children to grow up knowing their mother destroyed their family. One night. One impulsive night that meant more to you than all the years we spent together raising our children. When they grow up, will they be able to find any self-respect? And now you expect my support after everything you've done? Don't count on it. Goodbye. Soon, I got a job closer to the family and enjoyed peaceful holidays. The divorce went smoothly, with a fair division of property. Although I returned half the money, it was satisfying to slightly delay the process just to make her a bit uncomfortable. It came as no surprise when a few husbands, fed up with someone's antics, decided to put an end to his career. Emma and Tommy grew up strong-willed and, understanding why our family had fallen apart, became little rebels in their own right. Eventually, Arya reluctantly agreed for the kids to move in with me, and they thrived. Maybe it was the warm climate, or maybe it was having a devoted father nearby. Meanwhile, friends back home found it only fair to warn anyone dating Arya about her tendency to betray. Realizing her reputation, she left town, occasionally reaching out to the kids, but after 3 months, she disappeared. They say the truth always finds its way, and sometimes it brings the right person along. For me, that was Nancy, 7 years younger, also divorced, with a daughter Tommy's age. It may sound like a cliché, but life is full of surprises, and since then, we've been happy. As for Arya, she soon found a younger man who brought her some happiness, until one night he left for a woman his own age whom he met at a dance. At least he didn't leave without a word. He waved as he walked away with his new partner. Since then, Arya stopped seeing anyone, spending her days in an apartment with a couple of stray cats, or so the kids say. Karma, it seems, is still around, though it has softened over time. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel. Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started.
My name is Layla Rodriguez. I recently turned 55, and I find myself standing on the edge of a pivotal moment in my life. William Rodriguez and I have been married for 31 years, after 2 years of dating. We have a daughter currently in college. This Friday will mark 31 years since our first date. Anniversaries have always been special to William. He's planned an evening for us at our favorite restaurant, but this time he'll be in for a shock, a surprise he likely doesn't see coming. My feelings for him haven't faded. I'm still deeply attached to him. He's a wonderful person. In the early years, our marriage was nearly perfect. Back then, I never doubted for a moment that we'd grow old together. Those early days were filled with shared goals, hard work, and mutual support. When our daughter Elizabeth was born, William suggested I leave my job to stay home until she started school. When I returned to my career, we focused on building a future, saving for Elizabeth's college and setting aside funds for retirement. Thanks to William's promotions, wise investments, and inheritances from both sides of the family, we've built a solid financial foundation. Throughout all these years, I've been entirely devoted to William. Of course, we occasionally had differing views, but we never truly fought. Our relationship remained stable, comfortable, and we always reconnected when both of us were willing. I never considered infidelity, even though I received attention from men at work and in our social circles. Cheating was simply not part of my nature. Now, though, I see just how contradictory I was. Publicly, I always condemned those who strayed, yet secretly found their stories thrilling. I'd heard of empty nest syndrome and how it could push women to unexpected paths, from trying to reinvent their lives to retreating inward. I used to consider this a stereotype. A quieter house seemed like an opportunity to grow closer to William. Elizabeth had been independent for a while and was often out until late, so her departure didn't seem like it would be a major change. But maybe it did affect me, and I just hadn't noticed. With more time to think, I began to wonder if I was still attractive to other men. Eventually, I allowed myself thoughts I'd repressed for many years. One evening, I stood in front of the mirror and noticed the changes. Wrinkles covered what was once smooth skin, my features had softened, and I'd gained a few extra pounds around the waist. I started noticing subtle compliments and flirtation from men. Either I hadn't paid attention before, or their interest had waned over time. To counter this, I started working out, wearing a bit more makeup, and choosing clothes that accentuated my figure. The attention increased, and although it felt good, it wasn't enough. I craved something more, something thrilling, vivid, and alive. I started reading about infidelity and watching movies on the topic. Thinking about my marriage, I realized it had remained unchanged since Elizabeth left. That was the issue. It felt like living in a loop, where the same scenes repeated over and over. Yes, William still complimented me, never forgot anniversaries, and our intimate life was steady, but it felt stagnant, like replaying old episodes instead of discovering new stories. I yearned for something novel, an unfamiliar spark. I gently hinted that we should try something new together, hoping William would be interested in exploring. He made efforts, but the excitement I dreamed of wasn't there. Although his actions varied, he remained the same William. And then the idea struck me, to find someone else, someone who could rekindle that feeling of excitement, perhaps a secret lover. For this new venture, secrecy would be essential. The weight of being exposed was crushing me. One wrong move, and everything I held dear, my husband, my daughter, the life I had so meticulously built, could crumble in an instant. Cover stories like working late or business trips were out of the question. Everything had to happen strictly within the office during work hours. Even under such constraints, finding someone who met all the requirements was not easy. I mentally sifted through possible candidates, dismissing almost every man for one reason or another. Yes, there were several attractive single men around, but they were notorious for bragging about their exploits, especially when it involved married women. I couldn't afford to become part of their stories. Meanwhile, my life at home was sinking into a painfully dull and predictable routine. Each day felt like a slow, suffocating loop, leaving me craving any kind of spark that might break this monotonous stagnation. My attempts to rekindle our marriage, like spicing up our intimate moments, had little effect. And then Michael appeared. He joined our office about a year ago as a mid-level manager, and amusingly, his name became a subject of mild jokes. The guys called him Devil or Curse with a smirk. Michael quickly attracted the attention of all the women in the office, who watched him unabashedly. It seemed he enjoyed light flirtations, but always maintained a certain distance, never crossing the line. But I noticed his glances lingered on me a little longer. His smile held just a bit longer when he looked my way. My heart would beat faster. Occasionally, he'd come over to chat, asking subtle, harmless questions about my husband and daughter. His questions never crossed any boundaries, but each one stoked a fire I hadn't felt in years. The first significant change came when he suggested having lunch together. I sensed that this could go beyond simple conversation, so I agreed. Laughing, he teased, "Let's hope the office gossip doesn't decide we're a couple." I laughed in return, saying, "A bit of buzz in my life wouldn't hurt." I hadn't intended for my discontent to be so obvious, but it slipped out before I could hold back. Our conversations remained light and brief. I learned he had a wife named Alice, a woman from a wealthy family with no children. He spoke of her with respect, but without warmth. She had married him against her family's objections, and often reminded him of it, expecting constant gratitude from him in their arguments. In response, I shared stories about my daughter with pride. When I spoke of my husband, I painted a picture of stability and comfort, nothing more. Gradually, I began hinting at the lack of passion in our marriage, though I didn't say outright what I truly wanted. Michael picked up on the hint, and it was only a matter of time before we both understood we wanted more than just friendly chats. I felt that pull, fully aware of where it might lead. We were cautious. No lingering glances, no obvious hints. To everyone else, we were simply two happily married colleagues. I even played along with my colleague Ted, calling him my office husband, and cheerfully reminding him to keep up our playful banter. It helped divert attention. Then came the day Michael and I ended up alone in the elevator. He reached over and pressed the emergency stop button, and I instantly knew why. He pulled me to him and kissed me with such force and passion that I responded with equal intensity. We were lost in each other, our hands roaming, completely captivated by the moment. When he released the button and the elevator resumed its descent, he looked at me and said, "We need to talk." I nodded, spending the rest of the day replaying that encounter in my mind. A fleeting sense of guilt passed through my thoughts, but the overwhelming desire quickly drowned it out. I wanted more. Michael called to deliver a simple message. He would notify my husband that I'd be coming home later than usual. Beneath this message, I wondered if he intended to test the boundaries of our relationship tonight, something I secretly hoped for. But when he arrived at my office, he simply mentioned that we'd need to wrap things up quickly, as it was unusual for us to stay late. He didn't even attempt to close the distance between us. Instead, we had an open and honest conversation, admitting our mutual desire to be closer, yet agreeing to approach everything cautiously. After that, we parted ways, each lost in thoughts about how to safely explore what we both wanted. I'd read about women who cheated, but consoled themselves with the idea that their marriage was still strong because they maintained intimate relations with their husbands. Yet they failed to realize that in doing so, they created an emotional distance outside the bedroom. Almost subconsciously, I began to see William differently. I started noticing minor flaws in him, as if I needed a reason to justify my interest in someone else. From that moment on, Michael often crossed my mind, even in the elevator, and the little things William did, things I used to ignore, started to annoy me. My tone became sharper when expressing my dissatisfaction. What I used to calmly ask William to do, knowing he'd eventually get to it, now irritated me if he didn't act immediately. I felt myself growing increasingly irritable. Meanwhile, Michael proposed a plan for our meetings. He rented a private, unused room a floor above. When I asked how he could afford it, he smiled and said, "Having a wealthy wife helps." I didn't argue. We furnished the room minimally, but made sure there was a large, easy-to-clean sofa. Soon we were using it, and the intimacy with Michael was even more thrilling than I had anticipated. In the heat of the moment, we whispered, "I love you" to each other, though we probably meant, "I want to be with you." From that point on, we carefully planned our visits, leaving the room one by one of us using the stairs, the other the elevator, to avoid suspicion. Our meetings had no fixed schedule. To maintain confidentiality, we met sporadically, sometimes skipping days to minimize the risk of being caught. We were extremely cautious, constantly scanning for signs of surveillance both at work and at home. We completely avoided digital communication. Instead, Michael bought special phones exclusively for our conversations, claiming they were for work only in case anyone asked. On these phones, we used secure passwords and carefully thought through each move. As my bond with Michael deepened, so did my desire to be with him, though a part of me was still attached to William. William had become familiar and comfortable, like an old pair of beloved slippers. Michael, on the other hand, was like a new, irresistible pair I couldn't refuse. Michael was the first to bring up the possibility of a future together, which led to a candid discussion. We subtly mentioned to our spouses a story about an acquaintance who had lost access to shared finances due to delays in inheritance processing after their partner's death. We framed it as a reminder of the importance of including both partners on all accounts. For Alice, this was an opportunity to show Michael that she trusted him, unlike her family, who had always been wary of his intentions. In my case, William picked up on the hint, and we added each other's names to all our accounts. He even suggested adding both our names to the safe where we kept valuables, like jewelry, coins, and bonds. That night, I thanked him with an unusual passion, though my thoughts weren't on him. Only later, when Elizabeth re-entered our lives, did I begin to realize the extent of the changes between William and me. William and I were genuinely overjoyed to see her again. We easily drifted into laughter, reminiscing about stories from her childhood, as if no time had passed. At one quieter moment, she pulled me aside and told me that her father had recently shared with her his concerns about my gloomy mood, wondering if I was okay. Nevertheless, she noted that today I looked entirely like myself. I admitted that he was probably right, sharing that I felt down. Perhaps because of menopause, I suggested. I quickly assured her that my marriage was fine. Although it hurt to hide the truth from my daughter, I wasn't ready to reveal everything just yet. Later, when Michael and I were alone, I told him I suspected William was starting to sense that something was off with me. I proposed we accelerate our plan. What we were about to do was unfair to William and Alice, but we'd already crossed so many lines. Why stop now? The plan was to take as much money as we could and disappear together. Although we knew our departure would cause pain, we believed it wouldn't be a lifelong ruin for them. After all, both William and Alice were financially secure. William because of his career, and Alice thanks to her family inheritance. They'd manage. Michael had no ties to Alice's family, so he felt no guilt about taking the family money. As for me, I managed to justify the choice by convincing myself it was inevitable since I hadn't been able to change him. I pushed aside my guilt, focusing on the future with Michael, envisioning a life free of obligations, where we'd live solely for ourselves. Soon, the past would be left behind. The time was nearly here. I called to confirm the dinner reservation William had made for us at 7 o'clock. Indeed, the table was set, with a chilled bottle of our favorite wine. William told me he'd be late at work and would meet me at the restaurant. At 4:20 p.m., I went to the bank, handed the teller my ID, and requested to withdraw all funds from the accounts. But when she checked the information, I noticed a look of confusion on her face. After a moment, she explained, "It appears there's been a mistake. Your husband was here earlier today and withdrew nearly all the funds. When such a large amount is taken out, we usually ask if there are any concerns." Your husband explained that he was worried about a market crash and wanted to keep cash on hand for a while. We assured him it wasn't necessary, but he insisted. A spark of hope ignited in me. What about the safe deposit box? I asked, thinking maybe he'd left cash there. She directed me to the man in the brown jacket by the elevator who could help with that, and reminded me to bring my key. Clutching the key, I approached the man, signed the log, and noticed William's signature a few lines above mine. A wave of unease washed over me. Had he hidden our money here or taken it all? The outcome depended entirely on what I'd find. Following the man to the vault, I watched as he placed the safe deposit box on the table and left me alone to open it. My pulse quickened as I prepared myself for what I might find inside. My heart sank. Inside was only a single letter. It read, "Lila, if you're reading this, then you know I got to the money first. Michael will find out soon as well. When Alice and I discovered what you and Michael were plotting, we prepared our own response. Divorce was one option, but your plan worked out even better, vanishing with the money and leaving you both with nothing. You and Michael hid your affair well, but if you need someone to blame, look no further than that phone operator who called your secret mobile while it was on silent in the other room. When I stumbled upon that strange phone hidden in your purse, it seemed harmless at first. Just some telemarketer leaving a message, and I didn't think much of it. But then it struck me, why would you even need another phone? A few innocent explanations flashed through my mind, but a darker thought began to take shape. You're hiding an affair? This suspicion grew stronger, filling in the gaps left by the subtle changes in your behavior. I kept my worries to myself, though I was already noticing other signs pointing to betrayal. Do you remember the set of pens I bought? I needed those gel pens because I kept losing mine. I gave you a few, scattered them around the house so they'd always be close at hand. But they weren't just pens. Each of them had a tiny transmitter, recording conversations and sending them to my computer. I even slipped one into your purse. After a few days, the puzzle started coming together, and in the end, we had the full picture. We both suffered from broken hearts as we unraveled the truth. But amid this pain, something unexpected happened. We found a connection with each other. At first, we were bound by a desire for revenge, but soon it grew into something much deeper. Dreams of escaping with a new, thrilling partner weren't originally our idea. We borrowed it from you, and it felt fair because that's exactly what both of you wanted. I've already shared my side of the story with Elizabeth, and soon she'll be fully in the loop. I promised to cover the remainder of her education, and that promise will soon be kept. When our daughter understands everything, she'll likely reach out to you. I explained it all to her, about you, about Michael, so be prepared. Meanwhile, Alice and I will set off on our own adventures around the world and watch you from afar. I doubt you'll have the means to travel now, especially after your boss found out about your office affair. But if you don't manage to visit exotic places, don't worry. We'll send postcards from our trips. Oh, and we recently canceled your plane ticket. I doubt you'd want to leave the country without money or cards. I told her something I never told you, a nickname from grade school. They called me Bug after I performed in a school play. Thank you, I suppose, for 31 years of marriage and for our wonderful daughter. But now, knowing how you see me, as a husband, a lover, a partner, I can't pretend anymore. I can only hope that whatever you had with Michael was worth it. At least you'll have that. I regret spending so much time on you. You know, you're not worthy of me. Goodbye.
This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.